But we continue here tonight. The South African government is spending more money than it makes. It's led to a widening budget deficit in recent months. Treasury now reportedly considering spending cuts. The finance minister has poured cold water on claims that the country is running out of money. Econometrix chief economist Dr Azar Jammine joins us for more on the story tonight. So, Dr. Jammine, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Despite the fact that the Minister Inokodongwana has tried to come back and say the situation is not as bad as perhaps may have been painted by that notice he issued, we still very much have a freeze on posts in the public sector. There doesn't seem to have been any much more change around what it is that departments can do, despite what he has said. What are we to believe? How much trouble really are we in?
We are in quite a lot of trouble. I think to say that we're running out of money is a misnomer. At no stage does the government run out of money, so to speak. Because so long as investors are willing to buy the bonds that government issues in order to borrow money, it doesn't run out of money. The only difference is that the interest rate that it has to pay to attract those buyers of its bonds tends to keep rising. But it certainly is still managing to raise as much money as it needs to keep ongoing operations in place. But we are in difficulty because those long-term interest rates have risen to their highest levels in many years, and that means that the amount that government is now having to divert towards paying interest on government debt is rising inexorably and crowding out its ability to spend on other more vital areas of social needs, such as education, healthcare, housing, policing, and that kind of thing. And on top of that, it seems to be, for political reasons, under a lot of pressure to embark upon other expenditures that some people would say are unaffordable.
Are those expenditures including the pay hike given to public servants?
That's a very important one. Another one that I suppose is inevitable is the extension of the social relief for distress grant of 350 Rand a month for over 8 million people. It helps to keep them alive, but government is very ill-equipped to be able to afford that year after year after year. It's supposed to end in March, but now, for political reasons, certainly, the government will probably find it essential to extend this into the future, and that means finding another 45 billion Rand every year.
Dr. Jammine, that of course brings an interesting dynamic to this conversation, because not only are we dealing with the prospects of austerity, as some have described it in the medium-term budget statement, but this comes at the eve of what is essentially an election cycle, and there will obviously be considerations about how to manage spending in a way that doesn't compromise the political position, particularly of the governing party, going into 2024. What then does that mean? What are we likely to see when it comes to the cut on spending? Because that seems to me that it's inevitable at this point. You already have the unions that are up in arms over this issue, and they've made it clear that they are not going to be, going down silently over this issue if, in fact, the minister follows through with part of what he has said.
Precisely. That is why I think there's going to be a lot of acrimony within the ruling party and within the tripartite alliance, with the Ministry of Finance trying to hold the fort on the one hand, and the rest of the party, or many elements of the rest of the party and its allies, being totally opposed to this. That is one of the reasons why the Rand has already come under so much pressure this year, in discounting the dissension that we're going to see within the ruling party over this. But the Ministry of Finance, in wanting to do the job that it feels it is mandated to do, has to try and hold the fort in this regard.
So realistically apologies to come in there, realistically, what then do we anticipate, Dr. Jammine? Experts like yourself, what are you anticipating?
I think at the end of the day, we'll probably get a kind of an in-between situation where the budget deficit will be larger than what was planned, but the attempts will be made to rein it in sufficiently so that there is not total alarm and loss of confidence. The other thing that the Minister of Finance has already intimated is that the government may need to look towards raising taxes. And the most obvious one and the most certain one in terms of being able to raise more money will be to raise the rate of VAT. There again, that will cause tensions within the ruling party and its alliance partners.
Ultimately, what you're saying is there are no easy decisions to be made here. In the absence of raising, VAT, when it comes to... Sorry, what was that?
There are no easy solutions. One must recognize that the real problem arises from the fact that economic growth has been far too low for too long. We did receive a little bit of a bonanza in 2021-22 with higher commodity prices that enabled some mining companies to make super profits on which they paid a lot of tax. But those commodity prices, coal, palladium, rhodium, have come back tumbling down, as we read in the papers every so often, and those mining companies are now paying far, far less tax than was the case. So the government is suddenly short of those funds. It needed to trim its budget a long time ago and hasn't done so, and instead succumbed to the agreements with public servants to give them another very big pay hike. People in the private sector, in many instances, have been having to take massive cuts in salary in order to stay in business, but the public sector has no such accountability, and so your unions have been pressing for higher wages in the government ahead of political needing to retain the support of COSATU within the tripartite alliance ahead of the general election, succumbed to that pressure.
All right. Well, as you heard there, no easy decisions. We'll certainly be waiting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks as we expect the finance minister to deliver that medium-term budget policy statement. That was Econometrix chief economist, Dr. Azar Jammine.